Biker tore a waitress's shirt, then her military tattoo made the entire cafe go silent. The door of the small roadside cafe flew open with such a crash that every conversation inside immediately died. Standing in the doorway was Rustam, a massive man in a worn leather jacket covered with patches, tall with a thick beard and a heavy gaze. Behind him, as if on command, 3 more bikers piled in. The entire crew reeked of gasoline, highway dust, and cigarette smoke. The cafe was cozy and homey. Little curtains on the windows, flowers in pots, the smell of fresh soup. A young waitress, a thin girl about 20 years old, froze with a tray in her hands. She looked frightened but tried to hold herself together. Her name tag read Lena. "Well, boys, looks like they feed people here," Rustam smirked, dropping into a chair so hard it creaked. "Girl, we need food and make it quick." Lena approached, gathering her courage. "Good afternoon. What would you like to order?" "Everything with meat," one of the bikers tossed out. "And coffee," another added, winking at the girl. Rustam watched Lena intently the whole time. There was something strange about her. Not beauty exactly, no, she was quite ordinary, even plain. But there was something firm in her gaze, as if behind that fragility stood real strength. "You're new here?" he asked when she was writing down their order. "Yes, 3rd day," she answered calmly. "Well, well," he chuckled. "Better not mix anything up because I get mean when I'm hungry." Lena smiled, not from fear but almost condescendingly. That got to him. He was used to people being afraid, flinching. But here was a smile. Calmness. When she brought their plates, one of the bikers accidentally knocked a cup and coffee spilled onto the edge of the table. Lena quickly reached to wipe it, but Rustam suddenly grabbed her wrist sharply. "Hey, careful, girl! I don't like it when people stain my clothes." Lena tried to pull free. "I'm sorry, I just clumsy." He cut her off. The crowd in the cafe began to whisper. Someone from the customers already stood up, but Rustam shot him such a look that the man immediately lowered his eyes. Lena, feeling the biker's fingers squeezing her wrist, tried to speak calmly. "Please let me go." "Or what?" he said mockingly, staring straight into her eyes. "You'll call the police? Think you'll scare me with uniforms?" She didn't answer, only exhaled quietly and tried to break free. At that moment, Rustam slipped on the spilled coffee and accidentally pulled her toward him. There was a cracking sound under the fabric. The thin material tore at her shoulder. The room gasped. Someone cried out, "What are you doing?" But everyone's attention immediately switched to Lena's shoulder. Under the torn fabric, a tattoo was visible. Large, black, sharp. It depicted a military crest with wings and a sword, and beneath it the inscription, "Special Forces." "No one but us." Rustam froze. His fingers, still gripping her arm, slowly loosened. His gaze darted from the tattoo to the girl's face, calm, without fear. "What? What is this?" he rasped hoarsely. "My memory," Lena answered quietly. "My brother died in Afghanistan. I wore his uniform while I learned to shoot and promised I would be strong. This tattoo was done by his fellow soldiers when I finished survival training." Silence filled the cafe. Even the coffee machine stopped humming. "Now please let me go," she said calmly, looking him straight in the eyes. He released her hand, even stepped back as if he'd collided with something greater than just a person. The entire room froze. The bikers exchanged glances. The customers whispered quietly. The atmosphere had changed. Now Lena didn't look like a victim. In her gaze appeared that strength from which even the roughest men feel smaller. One of the bikers whispered to Rustam, "Boss, she's not ordinary." "Shut up," he cut him off. Rustam suddenly remembered how once, many years ago, he himself had stood before a woman in military uniform who saved him on the highway when he nearly died. Her gaze had been the same, firm, calm, real. He looked away. "Sorry, I didn't know." Lena smiled slightly, without anger, without pride, just calmly. "That's exactly why," she answered. "You should find out who's in front of you before judging." People in the cafe began to stir again. Someone even applauded. The bikers looked around in confusion, and Rustam heavily sank back into his chair. His hand still trembled when he pulled out a cigarette, but he couldn't light it. Before his eyes stood the tattoo, a symbol of honor, strength, and memory. Lena calmly collected the broken cup and walked behind the scenes without looking back. Whispers followed her. She's real. Real courage." Rustam was silent. For the first time in a long while, he felt shame, and deep in his soul, respect. About 20 minutes passed. The cafe gradually came back to life after the storm had passed. Customers ate again, talking quietly, but the air still remained tense. The bikers sat subdued, as if someone had knocked the arrogance out of them. Only Rustam hadn't touched his food. He sat staring out the window where raindrops lazily fell. Inside him everything boiled, not anger, no, but shame. Real shame, heavy as lead. He couldn't get that moment out of his head when he heard the fabric tear and saw that mark on the girl's shoulder. The Special Forces crest, painfully familiar. He himself had served once, not for long, true, but he knew what such a tattoo meant. You don't just get one like that. It's not just a drawing, it's an oath. Lena came out of the kitchen carrying a tray with coffee and pie. Seeing that the bikers were still there, she frowned slightly, but, composing herself, approached their table. "Anything else?" she asked calmly, as if nothing had happened. Rustam raised his eyes. "Can we talk? If it's business, please. If not..." Her gaze became firm. "I'm working." He nodded. "Business." She sighed and sat down across from him, placing her hands on her knees. Silence stretched between them for almost a minute. Only a spoon clinked in a cup. "Listen," he began awkwardly. "I acted like an idiot." "Yes," she simply answered. He chuckled without taking offense. "Won't argue. I just didn't expect... I thought you were just an ordinary girl, but you?" He shook his head. "Where did you get that mark?" Lena looked at him with a long, attentive gaze. In her eyes there was neither pride nor offense, only sadness. "This mark belonged to my brother. He served in Afghanistan. I was a child when the letter came." Her voice wavered slightly, but she composed herself. "He's gone, but his friends, those who survived, came to our home. They told me what he was like. Brave, kind, always first to go under fire to pull others out." She paused for a second. "When I turned 18, I decided to go through training. Not for service, but for myself. To understand what he went through." Rustam listened, holding his breath. His face, usually rough and stone-like, suddenly softened. "But why are you here, working as a waitress?" he finally asked. "After all that, you could be, I don't know, teaching, training someone, going into service." Lena quietly chuckled. "I could have. But my brother always said real strength isn't where there are uniforms and stars, but where a person isn't afraid to be kind." "Kind?" he repeated. "Yes. Here I see different people every day. Some angry, some tired, some just lost. I can smile, serve a cup of coffee, say a kind word. Sometimes that's enough to keep someone from breaking." She looked him straight in the eyes. "You know, I've seen too much pain and decided I don't want to live by war. I just want to be human." Rustam lowered his head. Her words struck right to the heart. He remembered how he himself had once returned from service, angry, hardened, lost. Everything inside had burned out, and his only solace became the road and speed. His bike was his armor. But looking at Lena now, he understood that behind her calmness stood not weakness, but incredible strength. "Listen," he said quietly. "You're right. I'm used to breaking things, not understanding them. My guys and I are often rough because the world is rough with us too. But you stopped me today." She smiled. "Sometimes to stop a storm, you don't need thunder. Silence is enough." The bikers sitting nearby listened in silence. One of them, named Lyoka, lowered his gaze. "We were wrong too," he mumbled. "Forgive us." Lena stood up. "Everything's fine. The main thing is you understood." She added more gently, "Just be more attentive to people. Everyone carries their own battle, even if you can't see it from outside." Rustam rose as well. "We're leaving. Thank you." He rummaged in his pocket, pulled out several bills and placed them on the table. "This is for the food and for the lesson." She shook her head. "Keep the money. I don't need it." "Then at least let me help you somehow. Maybe drive you home?" he offered awkwardly. Lena smiled slightly but refused. "Thank you, I'll walk myself." He nodded and they left. Outside it was already drizzling. The asphalt gleamed in the headlights. The bikers were silent. No one turned on music. When the engines roared, Rustam looked once more at the cafe window. Through the glass he saw Lena. She was clearing tables as if nothing had happened, but every movement carried dignity. He said quietly to himself, "It's not the uniform that makes someone a hero. Sometimes heroes wear aprons, not epaulets." The rain intensified. The bikes started moving. But now the road seemed different, quieter, calmer. And in Rustam's heart, for the first time in many years, there was genuine light. A week passed, but Rustam couldn't forget that encounter. Every time he sat on his bike, staring at the empty highway ahead, her words echoed in his mind. "Sometimes to stop a storm, you don't need thunder. Silence is enough." He told himself it was stupid. He was a grown man, almost 50 years old, who'd been through hell and back. Afghanistan in the 80s. Years on the road after that, broken marriages, lost friends. What could some 20-year-old waitress with a tattoo possibly teach him about life? But the truth gnawed at him. She had stopped him cold, not with force, not with threats, but with something far more powerful. Dignity, memory, truth. His crew noticed the change. Lyoka, his second in command, asked him twice if everything was okay. "You've been quiet, boss. Not like you." "I'm fine," Rustam had answered. But he wasn't fine. He was restless, agitated. At night, when he lay in his small apartment above the auto repair shop he owned, he stared at the ceiling and kept seeing that tattoo. The Special Forces crest. The words, "No one but us." He'd served, not in special forces, but regular infantry. He knew what those words meant. Brotherhood, sacrifice, a bond forged in fire that civilians could never understand. And this girl, this fragile-looking waitress, carried that mark not because she'd earned it in combat, but because someone she loved had died for it. That realization hit him harder than any punch he'd ever taken. On the 7th day, he made a decision. He would go back, not with his crew, not loud and aggressive, just him. To say thank you, to say sorry properly, to understand what he'd felt that day in the cafe. He cleaned himself up, shaved, put on his best jeans and a clean shirt instead of the leather jacket. He even stopped at a flower stand and bought a simple bouquet of wildflowers. Nothing fancy, just honest. The woman selling them looked at him strangely. "Big guy like you buying flowers? She must be special." "She is," he said, surprising himself with the honesty. She taught me something I needed to learn. When he walked into the cafe that afternoon, it felt different, quieter. The rain outside made everything softer, gentler. Only a few customers sat scattered at tables. And there she was behind the counter, writing something in a notebook. Lena looked up when the door opened. Her eyes widened slightly. Surprise, not fear, and she set down her pen. "You came back," she said simply. "I did." He approached slowly, holding the flowers like they might break. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" She tilted her head. "For not letting you make a bigger mistake than you did." He smiled despite himself. "Yes, exactly that." He held out the flowers. "These are for you. Not an apology, I mean, it is an apology, but also gratitude." She took them carefully, smelling the wildflowers. "Thank you, they're beautiful." She paused. "You want to sit? I have a break in 10 minutes. "I'd like that." Those 10 minutes felt like an hour. He sat at the same table where his crew had sat a week ago. The same spot where everything had changed. When Lena finally joined him carrying 2 cups of tea, she looked tired but peaceful. "I didn't expect to see you again," she admitted. "Most people, they get embarrassed and never come back." "I was embarrassed," Rustam said honestly. "But I needed to come back. What you said that day, it stuck with me. About being kind. About not needing thunder to stop a storm." He shook his head. "I've spent 30 years being thunder. Always loud, always aggressive, always ready to fight." "Why?" she asked gently. He looked down at his scarred knuckles. "Because after I came back from Afghanistan, I didn't know how else to be. The world felt hostile. People didn't understand what we'd been through. So I built armor, joined a motorcycle club, made myself big and loud so nobody would see." He trailed off. "See what?" Lena prompted. "How scared I was," he finished quietly. "How lost." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but thoughtful. Lena sipped her tea, studying him. "My brother used to say something before he deployed," she finally said. "He told me, 'Lena, if I don't come back, remember that I didn't fight because I loved war. I fought because I loved what was behind me. You, Mom, home, peace. That's why I work here. That's why I chose this life.' He fought for peace. The least I can do is live it." Rustam felt something crack open inside his chest, not painfully, but like ice thawing after a long winter. "Your brother sounds like he was an incredible man." "He was." Her voice was soft but sure. "Pavel always said the hardest battles aren't fought with weapons. They're fought inside ourselves, choosing kindness when the world is cruel, choosing hope when everything feels dark." "Pavel," Rustam repeated. The name felt familiar somehow, though he couldn't place why. Russian soldiers in Afghanistan. There were thousands named Pavel. When did he serve? 1983 to 85. He was killed in his last month before rotation home. Something cold touched Rustam's spine. "Where?" "Near coast. A mortar attack on their base." His hands started to shake. "What was his last name?" Lena looked confused by the sudden intensity. "Kostenko. Pavel Kostenko. Why?" The world stopped. The cafe disappeared. All Rustam could hear was the roar of blood in his ears and a voice from 40 years ago screaming, "I've got you, brother. Stay with me." "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh God, no." "What?" Lena leaned forward, alarmed. "What's wrong?" But Rustam couldn't speak. Not yet. His mind was racing back through time, through mountains and blood and fire, to a moment he'd carried every single day since. "Pavel Kostenko saved my life." The words came out hoarse, almost broken. Rustam's eyes were wet, his massive hands trembling as they gripped the edge of the table. Lena went completely still. What did you say? Your brother. Pavel. Rustam forced himself to meet her eyes. 1984. We were in the same unit, 5th Regiment Infantry. I was 21 years old. It was my first real combat situation. Lena's face had gone pale. Tell me. So he did. We were on patrol through a mountain pass near the Pakistani border. Intelligence said the area was clear, but intelligence was wrong more often than right back then. We walked straight into an ambush. RPGs, automatic weapons fire from 3 directions. Our convoy was cut in half within minutes. His voice grew distant, lost in memory. I was in the second truck. The explosion flipped us. When I came to, the vehicle was on fire and my leg was pinned under twisted metal. I could smell burning fuel. Knew I had maybe a minute before the whole thing went up. Then I heard someone shouting my name. Rustam, Rustam, where are you? It was Pavel. He'd been in the lead vehicle. Should have been 100 meters ahead, safe. But he came back, ran through enemy fire, found me in the wreckage. Rustam's hands were shaking harder now. He pulled me out, literally tore the metal away with his bare hands. I was bleeding badly, shrapnel in my side, broken leg. He threw me over his shoulder and started running. But we were miles from base, in enemy territory. And I was dead weight, over 90 kilos of dead weight. Any sane person would have left me, called for evacuation, anything but what Pavel did. What did he do? Lena whispered. He carried me, for 3 days, through mountains. No water after the first day, almost no food, hiding during daylight, moving at night. Twice we nearly ran into enemy patrols. Once he laid me in a ditch and covered me with his own body while they passed within meters. I kept telling him to leave me. Save himself, he wouldn't even discuss it, just kept saying, "We're going home, brother, both of us, together." Rustam wiped his eyes roughly. On the 3rd night, we made it close enough to radio range. Pavel got through to base. They sent a helicopter. We were extracted just before dawn. They rushed me into surgery. I woke up 2 days later. First thing I asked was, "Where's Pavel? Where's the guy who saved me?" The medic looked uncomfortable, said Pavel had gone right back out on patrol, said he wouldn't even stay for a commendation. And then, Rustam's voice broke, and then 4 days later I was still in the field hospital when we heard. Mortar attack, 5 killed. Pavel Kostenko was one of them. The silence that followed was absolute. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. Inside, 2 strangers connected by impossible fate sat frozen. "You're the one," Lena finally said. "You're the soldier he saved." His friends told stories. They said Pavel came back from a mission half dead himself, having carried someone for days. They said he wouldn't talk about it much. Just said he'd done what anyone would do. "But that's not true," Rustam said fiercely. "Not anyone would have done that. Most wouldn't. Most couldn't. Your brother was..." He struggled for words. "He was the best of us." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "He wrote about you. Not by name. He never used names in his letters, but in one of his last letters home he wrote, 'I saved a brother today. Nearly died doing it, but I'd do it again. Because that's what it means to serve, not killing enemies, saving friends.' I have that letter," she added quietly. "I've read it hundreds of times." Rustam dropped his head into his hands. All these years I've carried guilt. I'm alive because of him. He died days after saving me. I got to live, to come home, to waste years being angry and lost. While he couldn't finish. Lena reached across the table and gently placed her hand over his. "Pavel wouldn't want you to feel guilty. That's not why he saved you." "Then why?" Rustam looked up desperately. Why die for me? Because he believed every life matters. Because in that moment you weren't just another soldier. You were his brother. And brothers don't leave each other behind. Something in those words broke the dam Rustam had built around his heart for 40 years. He wept, truly wept, for the first time since he'd heard Pavel had been killed. Great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. Lena didn't move, just sat there, her small hand on his weathered one, letting him grieve. When he finally composed himself, Rustam pulled something from inside his shirt, a chain with 2 dog tags. One was his, the other. "I've carried this every day since," he said, unclasping the chain. He held up the second tag. The metal was scratched and dull, but the engraved name was still readable. Kostenko, P.A. Lena gasped. "His dog tag. How did you—" "His friends gave it to me, after he died. They said Pavel would have wanted me to have it, to remember." His voice was raw. "I never forgot, not for one single day." He held the tag out to her. "This belongs with you, with his family. I'm sorry I kept it so long. I couldn't let go." Lena took the dog tag with shaking hands, holding it like the precious relic it was. Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for carrying him with you, for remembering." "How could I forget?" Rustam said simply. "He gave me my life back. Everything I've done since, good and bad, I owed to him." They sat together as the rain continued outside, 2 souls bound by sacrifice and memory, finally finding peace in shared grief. "Tell me about him," Rustam said after a long silence. "Pavel. I only knew him for 6 months before." "Tell me who he really was." Lena smiled through her tears, clutching the dog tag. "He was the best older brother anyone could ask for. 7 years older than me. He practically raised me after our father died when I was little. He loved motorcycles, actually." She laughed softly. "That would have been something you two had in common. He had this old motorcycle he fixed up himself. Spent every weekend tinkering with it in our garage. Mother hated the noise, but Pavel said working with his hands kept him sane. He taught me everything. How to ride a bike. How to throw a punch properly so I wouldn't hurt myself. How to stand up to bullies without becoming one." Her expression grew wistful. "When he enlisted, I was 13. I cried for days, begged him not to go." "What did he say?" Rustam asked gently. "He said, 'Lenochka, some people are called to protect. I'm one of them. But I promise you I'll come home. And when I do, we'll ride that motorcycle together all the way to the sea.'" Her voice caught. "He never made it home. The motorcycle sat in our garage for years. Mother couldn't bear to sell it. Finally, when I turned 18, I learned to ride it myself. Took his friends, the ones who survived, and we rode to the Black Sea. Scattered some of his ashes there. That's when they offered to train me. Pavel's unit. They'd become close with our family. They saw how lost I was, how angry. One of them, Sergeant Volkov, said, 'Your brother fought his war. Now you need to fight yours, but you get to choose what kind of battle to fight.' So I trained. Physical combat, survival skills, weapons training, all of it. Not because I wanted to be a soldier. Because I wanted to understand what Pavel went through, what he sacrificed." "And the tattoo?" Rustam asked. Lena touched her shoulder where the Special Forces crest lay hidden beneath her shirt. "After I completed the training, Volkov and the others insisted. They said I'd earned it. Not as a soldier, I never served, but as someone who honored the fallen by living the values they died for. Strength, honor, brotherhood, sacrifice." She met Rustam's eyes. "Those aren't just military values, they're human values. Pavel believed anyone could embody them, uniform or not." Rustam nodded slowly. He was right. And you, working here, choosing kindness, you embody them better than most soldiers I've known. Thank you. Lena paused, then asked carefully, "What about you? What happened after Afghanistan? After Pavel?" Rustam's face darkened. "Nothing good for a long time. They discharged me 6 months after the ambush. Medical discharge. My leg never fully healed. I came home expecting, I don't know, welcome, understanding, something. Instead, people didn't want to hear about it. The war was unpopular, veterans were invisible or worse, blamed. I felt lost, angry, started drinking, got into fights, went through 2 marriages that ended badly. The motorcycle club saved me, ironically. Gave me somewhere to belong. Brothers who understood, even if we never talked about it directly. But I was still angry. Still carrying Pavel's death like a stone around my neck. I convinced myself I'd failed him by living, that his sacrifice was wasted on someone like me. Broken, angry, going nowhere. He looked at Lena directly. Until you showed me that living with honor is the only way to truly honor those we've lost. Pavel didn't save you so you could suffer, Lena said firmly. He saved you so you could live, really live, not just survive. I know that now. Rustam reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn photograph. I've carried this too. Took it the day before that patrol. That's me. He pointed to a young man with a nervous smile. And that's Pavel. Lena took the photo with trembling hands. There was her brother, young, strong, grinning at the camera with easy confidence. Beside him stood a much younger Rustam, barely more than a boy really, looking uncertain. "Can I keep this?" she whispered. We didn't have many photos of him from Afghanistan. "It's yours," Rustam said. "Everything I have of him should be with family." Lena carefully placed both the photo and the dog tag in her pocket over her heart. "You know," she said slowly, "Pavel used to say that the people we save become our responsibility. Not in a bad way, in a sacred way. He'd say, if I risk my life for someone, I'm investing in their future. They better make it count." Rustam felt those words pierce him. "I haven't made it count." "Not yet, maybe," Lena corrected gently. "But it's not too late. You're here now. You came back. You remembered. That's a start. A start toward what? Toward becoming the person Pavel believed you could be when he carried you through those mountains." 3 months later, Rustam stood in front of an old warehouse on the edge of the city. The building had been abandoned for years. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, weeds growing through cracks in the concrete. To anyone else, it looked like a lost cause. To him, it looked like possibility. "Ooh, you're serious about this?" Lyoka asked, standing beside him. "Converting this dump into a clubhouse?" "Not a clubhouse," Rustam corrected. "A veterans center. A place where guys like us, guys who came back broken, can find their way again." Behind them, the rest of the motorcycle club stood uncertainly. They'd followed Rustam for years, trusted his leadership through thick and thin. But this was different. This wasn't about riding and brotherhood in the usual sense. This was about healing. "I know it sounds crazy," Rustam said, turning to face them. "But I can't keep living the way I have been. Angry, aimless, running from ghosts. A friend of mine, someone very wise, reminded me that the people who saved us deserve to see us become better. Deserve to know their sacrifice meant something." He swallowed hard. "My life was saved 40 years ago by a man named Pavel Kostenko. He died days later, and I've spent 40 years not living up to that gift. So I'm going to fix this building, turn it into something good, a place where veterans can come for help. Job training, counseling, just a place to sit and talk with people who understand. No judgment, no bureaucracy, just brothers helping brothers. We're naming it Pavel's Place, in his honor. Lyoka was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. I'm in. What do you need? Everything, Rustam admitted. Money, labor, expertise. I've got my savings, but it's not enough. We'll need donations, volunteers. You'll have them, a voice said from behind. Rustam turned to see Lena approaching, carrying a folder. She'd become a regular presence in his life over the past months. A friend, a confidant, a connection to Pavel. What's that? He asked. Business plan, she said, handing him the folder. I've been working on it. Projected costs, fundraising strategies, grant applications. I have a friend who works in nonprofit management. She's willing to help. Rustam stared at her. You did this for me? For us, Lena corrected. For Pavel. For everyone who served and came back lost. She smiled. Besides, Pavel would have loved this idea. He always said the real heroes aren't the ones who fight, but the ones who help others heal after the fighting stops. Over the next 6 months, Pavel's Place took shape. The motorcycle club provided labor, tearing down walls, installing new windows, painting over graffiti. Local businesses donated materials. Veterans from across the region heard about the project and came to help. Some working construction, others offering their professional skills. A retired psychologist volunteered to run counseling sessions. A local trade school partnered with them to offer free training programs. Slowly, impossibly, the abandoned warehouse transformed into something beautiful. On the day of the grand opening, over 200 people attended. Veterans, family members, community supporters. The local news even sent a camera crew. Rustam stood at the front of the renovated main hall, looking at faces old and young, and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Pride. Not the false pride of bravado, but genuine satisfaction in work that mattered. Lena stood beside him, holding a framed photograph. It showed Pavel in his uniform, smiling, that confident smile. Beneath the photo, a plaque read, Pavel Kostenko, brother, hero, savior. This place stands in honor of his sacrifice and in service to all who served. You did it, Lena said quietly. Pavel would be so proud. We did it, Rustam corrected. None of this happens without you, without your brother's example. When it came time for speeches, Rustam kept his brief. For 40 years, I've been running from the fact that I lived when better men died. Today, I stop running. This place, Pavel's Place, exists. So no veteran has to run from their past. So everyone who served has somewhere safe to heal, to rebuild, to remember they're not alone. A wise man once carried me through mountains when he should have saved himself. He taught me that brotherhood means never leaving anyone behind, not on the battlefield and not in life after. So welcome home, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Pavel's Place. Welcome home. The applause was thunderous, but Rustam barely heard it. His eyes were on the photograph of Pavel, and for the first time in 4 decades, he felt the weight of guilt lift from his shoulders. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and toured the facility, Rustam found a quiet moment alone in his office. He stood before a window overlooking the main hall, watching veterans talk and laugh together. Lena appeared in the doorway. It's beautiful, isn't it? It is, he agreed. Thank you for everything, for showing me the path forward. I didn't show you anything, Lena said. You found it yourself. I just reminded you it existed. Rustam turned to face her. When I walked into that cafe months ago, I was a lost, angry man using violence to hide pain. You changed that. You and Pavel's memory gave me purpose again. Good, Lena said simply. Because that's what love does. It survives death. It changes lives. It builds new futures from old griefs. She stepped forward and embraced him, not romantically, but as family. "Welcome home, brother," she whispered. "Pavel saved your life 40 years ago. Now you finally started living it." Rustam held her tight, tears streaming down his weathered face. Through the window, sunlight broke through clouds, flooding the room with golden light. Outside, the sound of motorcycles rumbled as veterans arrived for the evening meeting. Inside Pavel's place, coffee brewed and conversations began. Stories shared, burdens lifted, healing started. And somewhere, Rustam liked to think, Pavel Kostenko smiled and said what he'd always said. "We're going home, brother. Together."